danger of a running quarterback. If you're going to play man-to-man defense and every single defender has his back to the quarterback, nobody's going to be right here.
Daniel Jones leads the New York Giants from a come-from-behind victory in his first NFL start on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a 32-31 final for the New York Giants in a game-ending missed field goal by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Daniel Jones had one hell of an NFL debut. He was 23 of 36 for 336 yards, had a quarterback rating of 112.7, threw for 2 TDs, and by the way, also rushed for 2 TDs. Had 4 carries for 28 yards. Daniel Jones was the be-all and end-all for this offense. Daniel Jones had a hell of a debut, and we haven't seen this offense move the ball like this, so energized the way they were today with Daniel Jones under center. And this isn't a knock on Eli Manning, but sometimes you just need a new face. You need a refresh start on the offense, and we saw that today. They were competitive. I think the defense earlier on struggled, and that put some pressure on the New York Giants and Daniel Jones to score the ball. But throughout the whole time, the one thing I noticed about Daniel Jones, he was always calm and poised. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers brought the blitzes. This defensive line came in, and the pocket was crumbling. This is the first time, in 3 games that I've seen this offensive line struggle. And every time the pocket was crumbling and collapsing, Daniel Jones would stay in the pocket. I mean, Daniel Jones can move with his legs, and we saw that on a couple of plays. But for the most part, Daniel Jones just stood in there and said, okay, I'm going to take what you're going to give me. He stood there and just kept his head down the field looking for open wide receivers. Daniel Jones, that's what quarterbacks need to do, and we've missed that because Eli Manning hasn't given us that. And I can't even remember the last time he was able to just sort of stand tall and take these hits. How many times do we often see Eli Manning just sort of duck and take these sacks, these horrible sacks? How many times have we seen Eli Manning not be able to move around the pocket, not be able to extend plays and find receivers down open? Daniel Jones did that today. Threw for 336 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. It's been a long time since we've seen, a New York Giants quarterback with such a great game like that, with the 112 quarterback rating. And it was just it was fantastic to see someone so poised, so confident, standing tall and strong in the pocket, especially during times where the defense or opposing defenses were just coming at Daniel Jones. And our wide receivers did a good job of getting open, creating separation. Having Sterling Shepard back definitely improved this offense, because we saw Sterling Shepard get a good share. We saw Evan Engram get a good share. I mean, this target distribution was pretty good. Evan Engram had 8 targets. Sterling Shepard had 9 targets. Darius Slayton, the rookie wide receiver with a huge impact in his debut, with 5 targets. Saquon Barkley with 5 targets. Russell Shepard, even though he only had 1 reception, had 5 targets. I mean, and I'm looking at the stat line. There were 36 total targets across 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 receivers. I mean, that's one hell of a target distribution. How many times have we seen Eli Manning just only target Odell Beckham Jr.? Or how many, we've seen that so many times with the exception of this year, we've seen that so many times last year and the years prior since Odell Beckham Jr. was on the Giants team, where the only targets go to Odell Beckham. I mean, this is the type of offense that we have the capability of running. You saw that West Coast offense. You see receivers and tight ends running across the field. You see our slot guys wreaking havoc. You saw Sterling Shepard lining up in the slot. You saw Evan Engram lining up in the slot, running great routes in the middle of the field and even out to the sideline for great gains. I mean, that touchdown, that Evan Engram 75-yard touchdown was in the middle of the field. He got the ball in the middle of the field and just ran towards and up to the sideline straight for a touchdown. I mean, that's the type of capabilities that this offense has. And I don't know why, but we've never seen this last year, and we haven't seen it in the first 2 games this year, but this offense was just rolling. And it was with Daniel Jones. And I want to give a big kudos to Daniel Jones for being able to sort of, there were a couple of times where Daniel Jones was going to get hit. He was touched, but he was able to move around, shift around the pocket, and then he ends up rolling left. His opposite side. Folks, Daniel Jones is a right-handed quarterback. He ends up rolling left to his opposite side and finding receivers open. He found on one play, he found Saquon Barkley open, and I think on the other play he found Darius Slayton open. I forgot who the receiver was on the other play that he found open. It could have very well been Evan Engram also. But that's just the stuff that we're looking for. And then being able to call read option fakes, we haven't been able to call that since Eli Manning was our quarterback. So for 16 years, the Giants couldn't call read option fakes. We were able to call that, and that was designed for us to score our touchdown. That was our very first touchdown of the game. Came off of a Daniel Jones read option scramble. I mean, this type of stuff, the offense just looked more fluid. It looked a little bit more complex. You can certainly see that, Pat Shermer was able to sort of expand his playbook a little bit, given that Daniel Jones does have and can be a dual-threat quarterback with not only his arm, but also his legs. And he's nowhere near the athlete that Deshaun Watson is or Lamar Jackson is. But, I mean, we have a quarterback that can scramble. We have a quarterback that can be a threat with his legs. And also equally play well with the passing game. And Daniel Jones did all of this with the number one thing not working for us on the offensive side of the ball, which is our running game. Saquon Barkley was not running the ball well. And this is before his injury, obviously, where he was out of the game. The New York Giants didn't run the ball well. Daniel Jones had the most rushing yards. He had 4 carries for 28 yards. Shepard had 2 carries for 21 yards, but I don't really want to count that because those were sweet plays. And one of the plays was one of the more bigger gains. I think it was a 19-yard gain where he ended up getting the first down. Wayne Gallman rushed for 5 for 13, and Saquon Barkley rushed 8 for 10. We didn't have a good rushing game, and Daniel Jones was still able to get us first downs. If you have a good running game, that usually means that you're able to put offenses in short down distances to convert third and short situations. We weren't in third and short situations a lot. But Daniel Jones, and this was a good thing about Daniel Jones, he relied on the short dink and dunk passes to get us into manageable situations. And that's what you have to do. You have to get us into the 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 4s. We did much better on third down today than we did in games prior because of the fact that we were in good situations on third down. I think at one point I saw a stat that we were 6 of 12. That was way better than some of the other games where we only converted 2 or 3 first downs. I mean, just big, huge game from Daniel Jones. And I also want to give a huge kudos to the receiving corps. Evan Engram, 6 catches for 113 yards. Sterling Shepard coming back from concussion, 7 catches and 100 yards. I mean, this is the type of game I wanted Sterling Shepard to have in week 1. But, I mean, first, I don't know. I don't know what happened in week 1 where Eli Manning wasn't able to find Sterling Shepard, especially because Eli Manning in week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys had time to throw. It wasn't like they were getting to the quarterback. It wasn't like Eli Manning was getting rushed every throw. I don't even remember Eli getting sacked against the Dallas Cowboys, and he couldn't find Sterling Shepard for 7 receptions and 100 yards. And Darius Slayton finally makes his debut, and I've said this on my podcast episodes way before the season started. I said Darius Slayton is going to be our deep threat wide receiver. Sterling Shepard and Evan Engram are going to wreak havoc in the middle of the field, run the short to intermediate routes, help us get gradual first downs, but Darius Slayton is going to be that guy that's not only going to help us get into the red zone with big shot plays, but also just be our Deshaun Jackson. And I know TJ Jones is the guy that's on our special teams that's returning kicks and punts, but you know what? Eventually, I'd actually like to see Darius Slayton try that out. Darius Slayton had 3 catches for 82 yards. He had a big 46-yard game from Daniel Jones, and he had a big 20-yard game where Daniel Jones ends up scrolling out of the pocket and finding Darius Slayton open for a first down. My one question about the offense, though, I just want to sort of get away from Daniel Jones for a bit. My one question is, I wonder why they had Russell Shepard starting and having way more snaps than TJ Jones. I don't even remember seeing TJ Jones on the football field. Like, I don't think he hasn't. I mean, I'm looking at the stat line now. He didn't get a target because, and the reason. So what ESPN does is, even if you don't have a reception, they're still going to put you on the stat line because they count targets as a statistic. So Wayne Gallman is there because he had 0 receptions, but because he had a target, he's on that stat line. TJ Jones wasn't even in the play. Like, I barely saw TJ Jones. So, it's just really, it's odd because I think TJ Jones is certainly better than Russell Shepard. And I think he's shown that. I mean, he made some pretty good plays for us last week. Granted, we lost that game, but he made some pretty decent plays for us last week. And TJ Jones and Daniel Jones built a rapport in the offseason and also during preseason, as we saw. It was clearly evident that Daniel Jones and TJ Jones had a rapport with one another. So, I would certainly try to start him next week and give TJ Jones a little bit more snaps next week, right before Golden Tate returns from his 4-game suspension, which I believe the Week 5 matchup would be against the Minnesota Vikings. But, nothing but good things from Daniel Jones. There were 2 plays from Daniel Jones that I didn't like. There's one play where he ends up missing Russell Shepard. I believe which was on a go route. The go route was sort of landing in the middle of the field. And he ends up missing Russell Shepard a little bit, not only overthrowing it a little bit, but also overthrowing it and then to the left. So essentially there was just no way for Russell Shepard to make a play on that ball. But had Daniel Jones accurately placed that bomb right over Russell Shepard's shoulders, Russell Shepard was going to be able to catch it and then also just run straight to the touchdown because there's no way the DB was going to get him. So that was one play where I kind of sat back and thought, okay, that was an easy touchdown. Daniel Jones kind of has to make those throws. He has to know how to make those throws. But granted, every single quarterback, the best quarterbacks miss throws like that. So that's fine. Then there was another play, and I don't quite remember. I don't really remember who the DB was from Tampa Bay, but Daniel Jones was trying to find Evan Engram in the middle of the field. It looked like there was a one-on-one coverage, but there was a safety over the top. Daniel Jones ends up trying to find Evan Engram, and the safety jumps the route, jumps Evan Engram, and ends up missing the ball and pops right out of his chest. On those types of throws, Daniel Jones, you have to understand where the safety is lined up. I felt like that was something that Daniel Jones should have caught, because had that been an interception, you don't know how momentum shifts. You don't know if that's something that maybe Daniel Jones gets impacted by. So I think that those are some of the things that sort of Daniel Jones should watch out for next time. And just be a little bit more aware of what the coverages are showing you. Because there were times where, the Bucks showed that maybe they were running man coverage, but then once the defense gets set, it's clearly a zone coverage. And I think that was an instance where Daniel Jones got a little bit tricked. There are other instances where Daniel Jones was too quick and decided where to go on where to go for the ball. And that's why there's a lot of quick hitters, where I think if Daniel Jones maybe just sat back a bit and maybe just try to understand what the defense is giving him, he would have found receivers more open frequently. But, he's a rookie quarterback. You know what I mean? He's not going to be able to read defenses so quickly and dissect them the way I guess we all want him to, right? He's not going to be able to do that so quickly yet. So on those 2 throws, those were the throws that I didn't like, that I thought were bad throws. But other than that, there was not one throw that I disagreed with. There wasn't one throw that sort of had me scratching my head. Whereas with Eli Manning, there's so many times where I think we all can agree, we sort of scratch our heads on why did Eli Manning make that throw? Right, who was he trying to throw to? There's no receivers in the area. Where's Eli Manning trying to throw to? I think there were so many times where, we're 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, even 3rd and 10, and 3rd and 10 plus. And Eli Manning goes for a 5-yard pass, expecting Evan Engram or Sterling Shepard to break out for another 15 yards after the catch. But we didn't see that with Daniel Jones. We saw Daniel Jones playing and making the right throws based off of the situation. We needed a first down. Daniel Jones knew, let's go past, maybe let's try attempts over the first down marker. Whether it's 3rd and 10, 3rd and 5, 2nd and 5, whatever the down was, I felt like Daniel Jones made smart plays based off of the down and distance situations. And it was very strange that we couldn't run the ball well, because I personally feel like we've played against 2 better defenses than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Saquon Barkley had field days against them. Against the Dallas Cowboys and the Buffalo Bills. Excuse me. So, this was just a tough game. It was just one of those games where Saquon couldn't get going. And we tried to mix it up a bit. It wasn't like, Pat Shermer was running away from the run game. We tried to mix it up a bit. But as I read on the stat line, Saquon Barkley had 8 rushes for 10 yards. And then he got hurt, and then Wayne Gallman couldn't get going because he had 5 rushes for 13 yards. But then also, we weren't able to run the ball as much as we wanted to at a certain point because we were down, and we just had to continue to drive the ball down the field. And obviously in the 4th quarter, that sort of became a different sort of ball game because, clock was ticking, the play clock was burning, and we didn't have a lot of timeouts. We burned one timeout because Pat Shermer wanted to challenge a potential pass interference call that didn't end up going his way. So, just certain situations like that required us to sort of run away from the run game, no pun intended, and just rely on Daniel Jones to throw, as we've seen 30 times today. 36 times. He almost threw for 40 times. To throw for 36 times in your debut game in the NFL, that's impressive. And you know what that means? That means trust. That means Pat Shermer and the New York Giants coaching staff trust Daniel Jones to lead this offense. That's what 36 attempts shows me, guys. And now I want to talk about some of the injuries that the New York Giants sort of, took a blow on, during the game. Obviously, the most important one, Saquon Barkley with the high ankle sprain. Couldn't come back for the rest of the game. It was a little concerning to see Saquon Barkley get helped off the field and get helped off into the train so the trainers can look at him. Saquon Barkley didn't walk back. He had his arms rested on two trainers and essentially had one leg lifted off the ground. So that didn't look too good. And then he came back out with crutches. So, those two signs aren't great signs for the New York Giants. I don't know how severe this injury is. Like, I'm not like a doctor. I'm not too well versed on I guess how severe a high ankle sprain is. But Saquon Barkley did come out and say that he doesn't think he's out for the season, and that he's going to try his best to try to make a comeback. But again, I don't know, because it looked bad. You need your ankles, right? I'm just guessing out here, like, a high ankle sprain, you can't make shift hard movements. Saquon Barkley's a hard runner. So you have a high ankle sprain, you're going to have to be 100% to be able to be as effective as you are as a runner, because he's a hard, shifty runner. You're going to need good, healthy ankles for that. So, that's something to, be on the lookout for. But as a reassurance, Wayne Gallman, I think, is going to do just fine. I don't think Wayne Gallman is by any means going to replicate the numbers that Saquon Barkley can, but I'm high on Wayne Gallman. I like Wayne Gallman a lot as our next option. And for all of you fantasy folks out there, if Wayne Gallman is available in your free agency pool, which I believe he will be, certainly pick him up. He's not available in one of my leagues that I have a 14-man league in, but I'm certainly going to look at some other leagues and see if Wayne Gallman is available, and definitely going to pick him up in the waiver wires. The next big hit was Alec Ogletree. I know a lot of people are criticizing Alec Ogletree because he's not living up to what he should be. He's being overpaid, and we did trade some draft picks for Alec Ogletree, but we're thin at linebacker. And he was our best linebacker option. So, that's going to be a blow to us as well. I think Alec Ogletree was out of the game for only a hamstring, which isn't terrible. That means he'll probably be out maybe next week, and then maybe the week after that. But I think we'll have him for the most of the season, so that's not too concerning. I think the linebackers overall played great, though. And I think that was, in spite of Alec Ogletree. I don't think Alec Ogletree was one of the reasons why we played great in the first place. Marcus Golden had a great game on the defense. Had 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits. O'Shane Jimenez came in on a very crucial third down, pinned his ears back, and got to the quarterback for a sack. So he's having not the greatest rookie season, but, for the amount of playing time that he gets, he's making it worth it, right? I think O'Shane Jimenez has, 2 sacks on the year. Ryan Connolly, rookie linebacker out of Wisconsin, late round pick. I believe he was drafted 6th this year. Ends up having his first interception. Ryan Connolly is one of those people that is all over the field. So that was really good by, some of our young New York Giants linebackers. So I think we'll be fine without Alec Ogletree for the next couple of weeks. But I do want to talk about this defense, because in the first half, this defense got shredded. And I want to single out Janoris Jenkins, because if I can single out DeAndre Baker the last 2 weeks, especially how I ripped DeAndre Baker apart in week 1 against Dallas, I'm going to rip Janoris Jenkins. Right after the Buffalo Bills game, Janoris Jenkins essentially throws the front 7 under the bus, saying, I can't cover no wide receiver for 10 seconds. They need to get pressure on the quarterback. The fact that you're putting that type of pressure on a young front 7 group just shows the type of leader that you are. Shows that you have no true leadership skills. As much as frustrated as you are as a cornerback for giving up play after play, because, look, and I understand the defensive line couldn't get to the quarterback in the first 2 games. Granted, we had some success against the Bills, but nevertheless, I'm with you, Jenkins. I agree, but the fact that you come out and say that, I think he's like, hey, this is year 3 or year 4 and I'm 0-2. I get it. But what about Eli Manning, who had to suffer from a lack of a run game and a good offensive line and has gotten killed over the last 5-6 years? But he's never came out and said, I need better running backs. I need a better O-line. What type of leader are you? And today he kind of just showed he doesn't give a shit about the team. There was just no energy there. He gave up play after play, touchdown after touchdown. I didn't see him shrug his shoulders. I didn't see him throw up his arms. I didn't see him pout. And granted, that's not some of the things you want to see your DB do. But when you see your DB do that, it shows that he cares. At least it shows your player cares. Mike Evans had 7 receptions, 146 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the first half. And granted, while that benefits me because I have him in my fantasy teams, I don't want him to have that great of a game. He was targeted 10 times. Folks, even if he didn't get 7 catches, and let's say it was 4 catches for maybe 2 touchdowns, to be able to get targeted 10 times, that means the quarterback is seeing something with that matchup, is seeing the field a certain way for that wide receiver. I mean, Jenkins got burned play after play. I was almost thinking Mike Evans might finish with 4 or 5 touchdowns and 200 receiving yards. It sure looked like that. But James Bettcher did a great adjustment to this New York Giants defense. Because, look, we were given a big play after big play. I mean, Mike Evans killed us all first half. And then the second half, we held the Buccaneers to only 3 points. After they scored 28 points in the first half, we held the entire Buccaneers offense to 3 points after they were firing on all cylinders. At the half, it was 28-10. We finished the game 32-31. And you know when those 3 points came? Middle of the fourth quarter. So we shut them out for a whole quarter and a half. Even Mike Evans, we shut down Mike Evans the whole entire second half. The only time Mike Evans had a catch was at the end of the game. Obviously, Janoris Jenkins played that ball terribly because he tried to press Mike Evans. You don't try to press a big physical receiver like that if you're not a physical corner. Jenkins has never been a physical corner, and of course he got beaten at the line of scrimmage for a sort of a go route, and thankfully Jenkins was able to catch up enough to bring Evans down, and it wasn't a touchdown, because then that later on ended up resulting in a missed field goal. But Mike Evans had his 8th catch at the very end of the game. So James Bettcher ended up sort of dropping back, doing some zone coverages where it was hard for James Winston to find his receivers open. And I think the entire secondary played well enough because we finished with 10 quarterback hits, and I believe we finished with 4 sacks. We had 10 quarterback hits and 4 sacks, which was such a big improvement against the Bills, where we only had 6 quarterback hits and 3 sacks. Dexter Lawrence came up with his first career sack as a rookie. All of our young defensive players played well today. Even Jabril Peppers gave up a couple of plays against O.J. Howard, but I thought for the most part, he was on the screen. Jabril Peppers made some plays equally as bad as much as he gave up plays. But I finally saw him on the screen this week, as opposed to the last 2 weeks where I couldn't even see where he was on the field, was nowhere near the football. This defense has shown life in that second half. This defense over the last 2 games has shown the capability to get to the quarterback. Last week we had 6 hits and 3 sacks. We had 6 quarterback hits, 3 sacks. This week we have 10 quarterback hits and 4 sacks. I mean, we can only go up from here. James Bettcher has shown the ability to dial up plays to get their linebackers in the backfield and get to the quarterback. Even when we don't get to the quarterback and even when we don't hit the quarterback, we've seen the pocket crumble. And I talked about Jabril Peppers playing a good game. DeAndre Baker also played a great game, and I think because those 2 DBs, amongst others, aside from Janoris Jenkins, allowed our defensive line to make the pocket crumble and hit Jameis Winston 10 times. But this sort of begs the question, why don't I see enough of Corey Ballantyne and Julian Love? I don't see those guys on the field. I see Grant Haley more. I see Michael Thomas. I see Antoine Bethea. Obviously, we see Jabril Peppers and DeAndre Baker, but they need to play Julian Love and Corey Ballantyne more. Corey Ballantyne deserves playing time. He played a great preseason. He had the best preseason on the defensive side of the ball, along with Ryan Connolly. If Ryan Connolly can earn a spot to start and get some burn, then why can't Corey Ballantyne earn a rotational some rotational snaps? Where's Julian Love? I mean, Julian Love was supposed to replace Antoine Bethea. If you can't get that guy early enough in the season for him to get some experience, then how do you expect him to be the guy that's going to end up being our either main nickel corner or the guy that ends up taking over the safety spot? I don't know what James Bettcher's sometimes doing with the secondary. I think he has a really good hold on how he wants to rotate his linebackers and his defensive linemen, but from a secondary standpoint, I think he needs to sort of figure that out. And he needs to figure out ways to get Julian Love and Corey Ballantyne some more snaps. I mean, too often, the first game, the story was that DeAndre Baker, let Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and Randall Cobb run all over them. And then this week, we have Janoris Jenkins getting killed by Mike Evans, by one receiver. I mean, you need to rotate your players and sort of cool off your DBs when they're getting burned. And get other DBs out there. Throw different looks at these wide receivers who are having these big plays. Because I think that's what's essentially going to slow opposing wide receivers and opposing offenses down when you throw different looks. You can't keep throwing the same DBs out there, consistently drive after drive. That's why these cornerbacks are getting burned. You think after giving up a 20-yard play or a big touchdown, they want to go back on the field? No, that's a morale killer. Give them a break. Give them some snaps off. And then rotate them in and out. Let them sort of calm down mentally and emotionally before you send them out again after getting burned on a big play. And that's what happened to young guys like DeAndre Baker in the first game, and even against Buffalo Bills. And that's what happened with Janoris Jenkins. He got killed, and granted, Janoris Jenkins is a different case because I know, and I think the New York Giants fans and social media out there are sort of questioning Janoris Jenkins, whether he wants to be a New York Giant or not after his comments last week. But throw in Julian Love, throw in Corey Ballantyne. We want to see those guys play. There was such hype around them during the preseason. We want to see them get some real NFL snaps now. But a great sign that I want to see, and look, I know some people and some New York Giants haters are going to try to put things into perspective by saying, well, you only beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Jameis Winston. But they have really good players. Mike Evans is no scrub. Chris Godwin is no scrub. O.J. Howard is no scrub. Those are three viable receiving options. And Jameis Winston isn't a terrible quarterback. Jameis Winston can do damage if given the right opportunity. We've seen that. We've seen him torch our defense in the first half. You can be an average quarterback and still be successful in this league. There are average quarterbacks who don't have nearly the weapons, such as Josh Allen, who do just fine and win enough games. So I don't think we faced a bad Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. They just weren't good as the Buffalo Bills and the Dallas Cowboys are, who are both, by the way, undefeated. So, to put things into perspective, we lost to two teams who are undefeated at this point, and we beat a team who was, average. We beat an average team today. I don't think we beat a team that was less talented than us. I think we beat a team that was an average team today. And that's a good sign. We've shown improvements, not only offensively because we finally broke the 20-point mark, but even defensively because in that second half, man, did James Bettcher turn it around. I mean, after the first half, during the halftime show, I kept thinking, man, like, if this keeps going and we give up more points, this might be James Bettcher's last season as a defensive coordinator for the New York Giants because I don't even think James Bettcher lasts the whole season. But that was some of the most great second half defensive football I've ever seen since James Bettcher has been a defensive coordinator for the New York Giants. We've held the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to 3 points and Mike Evans to one reception, which came again at the very end of that drive, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers ended up missing a field goal. Where we did struggle also defensively in the second half, though, where while we were good in the passing game and getting to the quarterback, we did struggle in the run game. Ronald Jones and Payne Barber had some pretty decent runs against us that allowed Tampa Bay to get into some third and short situations, but thankfully our sort of defensive line, our front seven, sort of were able to stand tall and, stall out some of these drives where it appeared that, the Buccaneers may, drive down the field and get some points. In the second half, the defense came out blazing. We had 3 straight 3-and-outs. And that was a good sign from the defense. That was something that allowed us to stay in the game, allowed Pat Shermer to, be a little more, still be lenient with the play calling, not force Daniel Jones into tough situations and stuff like that. Not just call all of our receivers to go down the field. We were still we were still given the opportunity and the capability to be creative with our offensive playing call, because our defense kept us in the game, because the defense stalled out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drives. But that's essentially my assessment. I think right now, after week 3, this is what the offense looks like, and this is what the defense looks like. I think if Daniel Jones can continue to play the way he did today, we have a bright future for our offense. I think by not having Saquon Barkley, it's going to hinder us a little bit, because we won't be able to mix and match some of our play calls. If Wayne Gallman isn't having a successful run game, then that makes us a one-dimensional team, and you don't want to have a rookie quarterback who doesn't have that much experience, sort of throw 40 times. I don't want Daniel Jones to throw up to 40 times every single game, because if you throw 40 times, that means that's that many more times Daniel Jones has a chance to make a mistake. Daniel Jones can throw an interception or fumble the ball and even get hit. Daniel Jones got hit a lot today. He got sacked, 5 times? 4 of them came against Shaquille Barrett. Our offensive line didn't look good. But overall, by the end of week 3, at the end of this game, I thought, okay, this is the first game in 3 games where we had a bad game, and it all came against one defensive end, which was Shaquille Barrett. So I think we'll be fine against the Washington Redskins. Even though, granted, we'll be facing Jonathan Allen, who is just as much of a beast as Shaquille Barrett is. But I don't think their whole line is going to be able to wreak havoc. So I think we'll be fine from that standpoint. I think our receivers are going to be great and healthy. They are healthy, and they can get open, and they're quick, and they're great route runners. Darius Slayton is our burner and is going to stretch the field the way I imagined he would. Sterling Shepard is obviously going to be our number 1 wide receiver, and I think Evan Engram is obviously going to continue to lead our team in targets, because we've seen today that is Daniel Jones' favorite wide receiver option. And then defensively, I think our front 7, from a pass rush standpoint, is getting there, and will continue to get between 3 to 5 sacks every single game. I see from here on out, I think we'll be able to continuously get to the quarterback and hit the quarterback. I'd like to see some of our defensive linemen get back there, but the way 3-4 defenses work, it's usually your outside linebackers that come in and get to the backfield, so that's okay. But I find ourselves, hitting the quarterback between 5 to 10 times, getting between 3 to 5 sacks every single game, because we've shown that over the last 2 games against some pretty decent offenses. So obviously more to come on that. I think we're going to have a pretty successful pass rushing sort of statistics against the Washington Redskins. And defensively, again, I think everyone knows this. The secondary is just not good right now, and we can't get stops. We showed some really good ball in that second half, and hopefully that can translate into some of the coming weeks. I think the next couple of games are the Washington Redskins, the Minnesota Vikings, and I could be wrong, but I think the game after the Minnesota Vikings is the New England Patriots. Now, if you guys just maybe hold on a second, because I want to confirm that. Let's see, schedule. Pulling it up now. Yep, no, I was right. So we're facing the Redskins, the Vikings, and the Patriots. So, hopefully we can, if the defense plays the way our defense played in the second half today, if they play like that over the next 3 games, I see us beating Washington, and I'm going to change my, and I see us beating the Vikings. And then we'll end up losing against the Patriots. So, originally I had my win-loss prediction at we'd beat Buccaneers, we'd beat the Redskins, and then we'd lose to the Vikings. But you know what? I have us winning against the Redskins and even winning against the Vikings. However, I have to see how they play against the Redskins next week. Based off of that, I may end up changing that. But initially, my win-loss prediction, I had us losing week 1 against Dallas. I had us losing week 2 against the Bills. I had us winning this game against the Buccaneers. I even had us winning against the Redskins to sort of continue our first winning streak. And then I had us dropping to the Vikings and then winning against New England. But New England is just too much of a powerhouse this year versus years prior. I don't see us winning against New England, but I do see us possibly winning against the Vikings if we can sort of keep up this momentum, play that same type of defense that we played in the second half against the Buccaneers, against the Redskins and the Vikings. And if Daniel Jones played the way he did today against the rest of these next couple of weeks, then we have a good chance of being winning 2 more games straight. So, folks, that's about it. That's the Unsportsmanlike Conduct podcast. This was episode 22. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. That's _unsportsmanlike_conduct. I'm also on Twitter, so make sure you follow me on Twitter. That's _unsportsman. And lastly, but most importantly, if you're listening to this, you might as well subscribe. Let's go, Giants. Big win again. Peace out. Until next week.